A love that waited in silence. Sarah never thought her life would turn out like this. She used to imagine a quiet, peaceful future, maybe with a small house, a garden, and a man who made her laugh. But she never imagined marrying someone with a teenage daughter who didn't like her. Yet here she was, living in a large wooden house in Vermont with her husband, Matthew, and his 17-year-old daughter, Lily. Matthew was a kind man, calm and steady. He had lost his wife 3 years ago to cancer, and the sadness still showed in his eyes. Sarah had met him at her small bookshop in town. He would come in every week to buy books for Lily, or just sit by the window and read. Slowly, they got to know each other. They talked about books, coffee, and sometimes loneliness. Over time, something soft and deep grew between them. A quiet kind of love. It was gentle, not loud. Healing, not wild. And when Matthew finally asked Sarah to marry him, she said yes with her whole heart. But Lily never accepted her. From the first day Sarah moved into the house, Lily made it clear this was not her family. She barely spoke to Sarah. At dinner, she only talked to her dad. In the mornings, she would walk past Sarah without a glance. Sarah tried. She really did. She made Lily's favorite meals. She stayed quiet when Lily slammed her door. She even bought art supplies because Lily liked painting. But nothing worked. Lily kept her distance, her heart locked up tight. Matthew told Sarah to be patient. She's still hurting, he said. She just needs time. So Sarah waited and waited. But a whole year passed, and Lily still treated her like a stranger. Now it was a cold Tuesday evening in February. Snow had been falling all day, covering the trees and rooftops in thick white. Matthew had gone on a short work trip to Montreal and would be gone for 3 nights. Sarah was alone in the house with Lily, and the silence between them felt louder than ever. Sarah sat in her room with a blanket wrapped around her legs and a book in her hands. She wore an old gray sweater that still smelled a little like Matthew's cologne. The house was quiet, except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall and the wind brushing against the windows. She had just turned a page when she heard a knock at the door. It was light, almost unsure. Then, without waiting for an answer, the door opened. Sarah looked up, surprised. Lily stood there. She was wearing pajama pants and a large hoodie that almost swallowed her small frame. Her brown hair was tied up in a loose bun. Her arms were crossed and her eyes were unsure, but softer than Sarah had ever seen them. "I can't sleep," Lily said quietly. Sarah blinked. In the entire year they'd lived together, Lily had never entered her room, never come to her like this. "Do you want to sit down?" Sarah asked gently, patting the space on the bed beside her. Lily hesitated for a moment, then walked in and sat down. Not too close, but not too far either. Just enough space between them to breathe. They sat in silence for a while. Sarah didn't rush her. She didn't ask questions. She just waited. Then Lily spoke. "I found one of Mom's old letters." Sarah turned her head slowly, listening. Her heart beat a little faster. In the letter, Lily continued, she talked about how scared she was, about dying, about leaving Dad alone, about me growing up without her. Lily paused, biting her lip. She said if Dad ever found someone else after she was gone, she hoped it would be someone kind. Someone who could love me. Sarah felt her chest tighten. Tears filled her eyes. She tried to hold them back. "I didn't know what to do with that," Lily said, her voice cracking. "I read it last night. I felt angry. Then I felt guilty. Then I don't know." "I came here." Sarah reached out and placed her hand gently on Lily's. "Thank you," she whispered, "for telling me." Lily didn't move her hand away. She looked at Sarah, her eyes glassy. "I've hated you for so long, and you didn't even do anything wrong," she said. "I just missed her so much, and I didn't want anyone to take her place." Sarah nodded. "I never tried to take her place, Lily. I could never be her. I just wanted to be someone you could count on when you're ready." Lily looked down at their hands, her voice barely a whisper now. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I didn't want to be alone tonight." Sarah gave a small, warm smile. "Then stay." For the first time, it didn't feel like they were strangers. But just as Sarah felt a bit of hope bloom in her chest, Lily asked something unexpected. "Sarah, did you love Dad before Mom died?" Sarah froze. The question hung in the air like snow that hadn't landed yet, and everything changed. Sarah didn't answer right away. Lily's question hung in the air between them like a heavy fog. Did you love Dad before Mom died? Sarah stared at the young girl beside her, so brave and broken at the same time. Her fingers trembled slightly where they rested on the blanket. Sarah could tell that Lily wasn't asking out of anger. It wasn't an attack. It was something deeper. A wound trying to understand itself. Sarah took a slow breath. Her voice was soft when she spoke. Yes, she said, I did. I loved him. Lily's eyes widened just a little, but she didn't pull away. She didn't even flinch. Sarah continued, her voice low and careful, as if each word was fragile. But I never told him. I never said a word. Your mom was alive. They were a family. I never wanted to break that. I loved him from far away. Lily looked down at her lap. Her voice was quiet. When did you know? Sarah smiled faintly, a little sad. The first time I saw him at my bookshop, he came in with you. You must have been around 8 or 9. Your mom stayed in the car, I think. He asked if I had any books about painting for kids. I helped him pick one. Remember that? Yeah, Lily said softly. It had a bunny on the cover. I still have it. Sarah nodded. At first, I thought he just liked books. But then I noticed how tired he looked, like he was carrying something heavy but didn't want anyone to see it. And I started caring quietly. I never meant for it to turn into love. It just did. Lily sat quietly for a long time. Then she said, I always wondered why he liked you so quickly after Mom died. Now I get it. Sarah's heart ached at those words. I wasn't waiting for her to be gone, Lily. I didn't even speak to your dad for over a year after she passed. I didn't want to step into a life still full of grief. I gave it time. We met again by accident at the farmer's market. That's when we started talking, really talking. Lily nodded slowly. I believe you. There was silence again, but it felt different now. Not heavy or tense, just full of feelings that needed space. I read that letter 3 times, Lily said after a while. The one Mom wrote. I cried the second time. The third time, I started thinking about you. About how you never pushed me. About how you always knocked on my door, even when I didn't answer. About how you still made my favorite dinner, even when I ignored you. Sarah gave a small, tearful smile. I didn't want to force myself into your heart. I just wanted to be here when you were ready. Lily finally looked her in the eyes. Maybe I'm starting to be. Those 6 words melted something inside Sarah. She hadn't realized how much hope she had buried, how badly she had wanted this. Not just peace, but connection. With that warning, Lily leaned her head on Sarah's shoulder. Sarah froze at first, afraid to move, afraid to scare her away. But then, she slowly reached over and placed her arm gently around Lily's back, holding her close. Lily's voice was soft, almost sleepy now. I miss Mom every day, but I think she would have liked you. Sarah's throat tightened. She kissed the top of Lily's head and whispered, I hope so. For a while, they sat like that, wrapped in warmth and quiet understanding. And just when Sarah thought the moment couldn't get any deeper, Lily asked, Do you think Dad knew you loved him? Sarah blinked. That question hit her unexpectedly. I don't know, she answered truthfully. He never said anything. I never gave him a reason to guess. Maybe he felt something too, but kept it hidden like I did. Lily was quiet. Then she said, He always talked about how kind you were. Even when he was still married to Mom, he'd say, That lady at the bookshop always remembers what I like. She's got a good heart. Sarah laughed softly. He used to say that? Lily nodded. I think he saw you before he really saw you, if that makes sense. Sarah smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. It does, more than you know. Outside, the wind rattled the window again, but inside the room, everything felt still and warm. Then they both heard a sound. The soft creak of the hallway floor. Footsteps. Lily sat up. Sarah turned her head toward the door. It opened slowly, and there stood Matthew. He was supposed to be in Montreal until Thursday, but there he was, tired from travel, snowflakes still clinging to his coat, his eyes wide as they took in the scene before him. Sarah sitting on the bed. Lily tucked close beside her. None of them spoke for a moment. Then Matthew's eyes met Sarah's. And she knew he had heard them. He had heard everything, every word. Her heart began to race, not out of fear, but out of something deeper, something she wasn't sure she had to name yet. Lily sat very still, her eyes darting between her father and Sarah. Matthew stepped inside the room. And though the silence had just returned, everything was about to change. Matthew stood at the door, still wearing his heavy winter coat. His shoes were wet from the snow, and a small puddle had started forming on the floor beneath him. But he didn't seem to notice. His eyes were fixed on Sarah and Lily, still sitting close together on the bed. For a few seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't know how long he had been standing outside the room. She didn't know how much he had heard. But something in his eyes told her it was enough. Lily shifted awkwardly, pulling away slightly from Sarah. "Dad," she said, her voice nervous, "I thought you weren't coming home until Thursday. Caught an earlier train," Matthew said softly. "There was a storm coming in, and I didn't want to get stuck in Montreal." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The room felt smaller now, warmer, but full of something heavy. Unspoken words, old feelings, and the sudden closeness of three people who were never this close before. Matthew's eyes moved to Sarah again. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop," he said. "I was coming to check on Lily. I heard voices." Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Lily looked between them, then stood up. "I'll give you two a minute," she said, her voice quiet but calm. She walked toward the door, gave her father a gentle look, then added, "Don't mess it up." Sarah gave a soft, surprised laugh through her nerves. Matthew stepped aside to let Lily leave, then slowly walked over to the chair in the corner of the room. He took off his coat and sat down, looking tired but not angry, just thoughtful. There was a long pause. "I didn't plan for you to hear that," Sarah said finally. "I know," Matthew replied, "but I'm glad I did." Sarah looked down at her hands. They were resting in her lap, fingers nervously twisted together. "I didn't lie, Matthew. I never did anything behind your back. Never tried to come between you and your wife. I loved you, quietly." Matthew nodded. "I believe you." His voice was calm, steady, just like always. But his eyes, they were softer tonight. "I always wondered," he said. "Back then, when I'd come into the bookshop, there was something about the way you looked at me. I didn't understand it. Or maybe I did, but I wasn't ready to. Sarah gave a sad smile. "You were in love with your wife. I never wanted to interrupt that. I respected what you had. You were loyal." "That's part of why I loved you?" Matthew leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "After she died, I was so lost. You were the first person who made me feel like I could breathe again. You didn't push. You didn't expect me to be okay. You just let me talk." Sarah's eyes filled with quiet tears. "I wanted to help. I never expected it to turn into this. I didn't think you'd ever feel the same." "I didn't know what I felt," he admitted. "For a long time, I thought I was just grateful to you. Then I realized I was starting to smile again because of you." Sarah looked at him, really looked, and saw that same tired kindness she had noticed all those years ago in the bookshop. But now there was something else in his face, something more open. "I was scared," she whispered. "Scared to admit I'd fallen in love with a man who was grieving. Scared that Lily would hate me forever. Scared I'd always feel like I didn't belong in this house." Matthew stood up then, slowly, carefully. He crossed the room until he was in front of her. He didn't sit. He just looked at her. "You belong here," he said. "You always did. I think I knew it deep down, even when I wasn't ready to accept it." Sarah stood too, her heart fluttered. They were close now, close enough to feel the heat between them. The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was full of waiting. "I loved her," Matthew said softly. "My wife. I loved her with all I had, and I miss her every day. But I'm not in love with her memory anymore. I'm in love with you, Sarah." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She felt every word like a soft wind across her skin. "I don't want to lose you because I was too afraid to say that out loud," Matthew continued. "And I don't want Lily growing up thinking love has to stay buried in the past. I want her to see that healing is real, that love can come again." Sarah stepped closer. She reached out and touched his hand, and he wrapped his fingers around hers like he'd been waiting for years. "You're sure?" she asked. "I've never been more sure of anything," he said. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The look they shared held more than any kiss ever could. It was full of promises, full of quiet years and unspoken feelings finally set free. Suddenly, the door creaked open again. Lily peeked her head in. "You done being dramatic?" she teased with a half smirk. Matthew and Sarah laughed together, a soft, warm sound that filled the room. Lily walked in, this time without hesitation. She looked at both of them, then said, "Can we order pizza and watch something dumb? Like those cooking shows where no one knows how to cook." Sarah grinned. "That sounds perfect." Matthew nodded. "Yeah, let's do that." As they walked out of the room together, Matthew, Sarah, and Lily, it felt like something had shifted. Not in a loud way, but in a deep, steady way. Something broken had begun to heal. But just when Sarah thought things were finally settling, she opened her phone later that night and saw a message she never expected. It was from someone she hadn't heard from in years. And suddenly, the past knocked again. Sarah stared at her phone screen. Her heart skipped a beat. The message was short. Just a name and a few words. "Hey, it's Daniel. I'm in town for a few days. Would love to catch up if you're free. Daniel." It had been over 10 years, a name she hadn't said out loud in just as long. And there it was, showing up on her phone like a ghost with a casual smile. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, the house quiet around her. Matthew and Lily were downstairs, probably arguing playfully about what pizza toppings to order. Just hours ago, things had felt peaceful, maybe even perfect. But now her past was standing at the door again. Daniel had once been everything to her first love. The one who had left when life got too hard, when her world fell apart after her mother passed. He had promised forever, but walked away when she needed him most. She hadn't heard from him since. Sarah read the message again, her chest tight with emotions she didn't want to feel. She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she turned off her phone and walked downstairs. Matthew was sitting on the couch, his feet up on the coffee table, a blanket thrown across his lap. Lily was curled in the corner, scrolling through TV shows. "There you are," Matthew said with a smile. "We were just about to start without you." Sarah smiled back, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sorry, just had to check something." They settled in with pizza and a silly cooking show where no one knew how to make a decent omelet. Sarah laughed. When they laughed. She leaned against Matthew's shoulder when he pulled her close, but the message sat heavy in her pocket like a secret. That night, after Lily went to bed and the house grew quiet again, Sarah stood in the kitchen sipping tea. Matthew came in behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You okay?" he asked her gently. "You went a little quiet after dinner." Sarah hesitated. "There's something I should tell you," she said softly. "An old friend messaged me tonight, someone I haven't spoken to in years." Matthew pulled back a little to look at her face. "Someone important?" "He used to be," Sarah replied. "His name is Daniel. We were together a long time ago." Matthew nodded slowly, listening. "He just said he's in town, wants to catch up," Sarah added. I haven't responded. I haven't responded. I don't know." Then he asked, "Do you want to see him?" Sarah thought about that for a long second. "I don't know. Part of me wants to close that door for good. Another part wants to know why he left the way he did. Maybe for peace." Matthew nodded again. "You can go if you need to. I'm not worried." Sarah looked at him surprised. "You're not. I trust you," he said simply, "and I know how much it hurts to carry unanswered questions." She felt something in her chest loosen at his words. "Thank you," she whispered. The next afternoon, Sarah sat at a quiet coffee shop near the edge of town. She hadn't planned to say yes, but she had messaged Daniel that morning. Curiosity had gotten the better of her. She didn't tell Lily. She didn't want to confuse her, especially now that things were finally starting to feel normal. Daniel walked in 5 minutes late. He looked older, but still handsome in that polished way he always had. His hair was thinner, his smile a little softer, but his eyes still held that charm that once swept her away. "Sarah," he said, as if they'd seen each other just last week. "Daniel," she replied, not quite smiling. "Ika." They sat, ordered coffee, talked about small things at first. Work, life, cities they both lived in. Then the silence came. That space where real things had to be said. "I was awful to you," Daniel said finally. "I've regretted it for a long time." Sarah looked down at her cup. "Why did you leave like that?" Daniel sighed. "I panicked. Your mom had just passed, and I didn't know how to help you." "I felt useless, scared. I thought maybe I was just making things worse. So I ran." "You didn't even say goodbye," she said, the old pain returning in her voice. "I know," he said, "and I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say it out loud before it was too late." Sarah looked up at him. "I've built a life now, Daniel. I have someone I love, someone good, and I have Lily. She's not mine by blood, but she's in my heart." I figured, he said gently. You seem happy. Sarah smiled then, truly smiled. I am. They finished their coffee, hugged once briefly, and parted at the door. No promises, no drama. Just quiet closure. That night, Sarah told Matthew everything. He listened, held her hand, and said, I'm proud of you. Days turned into weeks. Lily started smiling more, began helping Sarah in the kitchen, even letting her braid her hair one morning before school. Things that once felt impossible now felt like daily miracles. One evening, Sarah found an old photo of her and Matthew in the bookstore before they ever knew what they would become. She framed it and placed it by the front door. Lily saw it the next morning. She smiled and glanced at Sarah. You really loved him back then, huh? Sarah nodded. I did. Lily paused, then said, I'm glad you stayed. Sarah's heart swelled. I'm glad you did too. And in that house, filled with memories, grief, and now healing, something gentle and new had taken root. Love didn't always arrive the way people expected. Sometimes it walked in slowly, quietly. Sometimes it walked into your room when you least expected it and stayed.